Hi, this is Adrian Reyes, host of the Freight Bad podcast, and today we're interviewing a very interesting man, one of the smartest men I've ever met. Um, he has lots of experience in the technology industries, and especially when it comes to digital twins. And yeah, today we're having a conversation with him. His name is Vartan. So yeah, Vartan, how about you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, Adrian. Nice to talk to you again. Yeah, this is we've been discussing this for a long time, and it's kind of interesting topic, digital twins. But to answer your question, yeah, my background is computer science and electrical engineering, and I kind of started my career software engineer and kind of moved up to systems architecture and enterprise architecture, and now I do a lot of combination of all those plus more like general technology consulting, and that really means just thinking about strategy and how a technology might or might not be useful or appropriate for a particular application. So, but that being said, I'm also a part of that to me involves trying to learn and read about other sciences and other engineering fields. I think I'm a big believer in the holistic view of things. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of, always seeking a holistic approach, really. It's one of the things that has got me the best results in my life, really. So, just for people to understand, right? I mean, what are you currently working on right now?
Well, I'm working on a few initiatives and potential uh, new systems, or I'd say enhancements to systems such as in the air traffic uh, control realm, um, both civil and commercial and military aviation. There are new technologies that are deployed and being enhanced, such as ADS-B for more accurate aircraft positioning and communication. So I'm looking at some of the technologies, both from the software side, electrical engineering side, and also things like, you know, more computer science stuff like mesh networks. Um, but I'm also working on a few other things that are just related to kind of more education, so things like even from kindergarten through 12th grade, like actually working with Armenia, country of Armenia, trying to advise certain groups on curriculum development and long-term future development.
Wow, man, that's impressive. And how did you even come to that? Um, I guess the question is like, how do you, how do you, it's really the point that I'm trying to get to really is that, you're talking about super impressive, and we always everyone starts at zero, so like to get to the position where you're now, of course, that takes lots of time and dedication. So, um, yeah, how do you come to that?
I think well, for me, and I guess this goes back to childhood, I think it's a question of, one's interest and excitement to learn. One thing I learned is that education and learning is a lifelong process. I mean, every day, we learn something. And, um, some of it is just interest, right? I have interest in certain areas more than others. But some of it is just, there's not enough time to do everything. I mean, I love biology and chemistry as well, but, I can't be immersed in everything equally. So I think to me, it's the issue of interest, but also then I think everyone has their own perspective on things. So as I said, I really like the holistic view of things. If you look at anything that has been built by mankind, the systems, technologies, even the development of science has really involved influence from many different fields. Um, I mean, for example, Alexander Graham Bell, right, who is credited with inventing the telephone. He was not a telecommunications engineer. He was not an electrical engineer. He was not a physicist. He was an audiologist working with deaf children. So he got that inspiration from his background, and there's many cases like that in history. So I think, to me, that's one of the keys, is to just be open-minded and look around and always kind of be thinking about, oh, well, why is this important, or how could it be important? And for me, one thing I've done a lot is, listen to people who know things that I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting journey, but I still enjoy it. So I think, it goes back to just finding things that interest you, and you'll be motivated to learn more, and you'll probably be more focused and concentrated and remember things.
Yeah. And it's interesting to bring that up. So how do you I mean, how do you happen to get interest in, the whole concept of digital twins, which is, a topic that we brought up at the start of the conversation? I mean, how did it happen in the first place?
Um, well, that's an interesting story. So one of my very, very good friends, we were undergraduates together at MIT, lived in the same dorm. Richard Soley, he's a chairman and um, chief executive officer of the Object Management Group, based in Waltham, Massachusetts, and they're, a very well-respected standards organization. And he just sent me an email one day saying, "Hey, you know, what do you think of this digital twin thing? Would you like to write us an article? You've written some technical and strategic articles for us in the past, and this is, oh God, this is going back now. Shoot, probably 8 years ago. And I had not heard of digital twins. So I went and quickly did a few web searches, spent a day reading, and I got back to my buddy Richard and I said, okay, sounds great. I already have some, I'd say strong feelings about this. And so he goes, excellent, let's go. So I wrote a few short articles, more oriented toward the marketing arm of the object management group, with respect to the strategic view, right? What could this be? What might it be? What might be its advantages? But from that, I just started getting calls from people asking me if I wanted to write some articles in magazines and journals. So um, most notably, the couple journals in the IEEE, the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers. A few folks asked me to write some articles, which I did, and those are some of the ones that I sent to you to read. Then I got involved with NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, and I co-authored a paper, or they call it a IR, informational report. And, that led to a lot of continuing discussions and some workshops and things. And I started developing, my idea of what I thought this should be. Uh, and that's kind of where I
Wow.
am today, still going on that journey of trying to proselytize the view that I think is the right view from the perspective of what would benefit industry the best. And I don't mean just one particular industry, but all industries. I think this is one of those technologies that can transcend any industry vertical or technical or scientific area, uh, for the benefit of all. But whether it does, again, that's going to be the tricky part.
Yeah, yeah, and for the people that are listening that may not understand or might not be 100% familiar with this kind of technology, can you maybe provide him with maybe a simple explanations, just a very brief overview of what it represents and the kind of um, benefits that it can bring to the world?
Great question, and perfect time to ask that question. um, well, so digital twins is something that started out representing a digital, right, or electronic or virtual version of a physical real world object. And just some really, really quick historical background. The gentleman credited with conceiving and coining the term, Michael Greaves, was working in the area of product life cycle management in the manufacturing space. And part of the notion was that you have all these different software applications, for industrial applications, factory floor, automation, etc., supply chain management. And these programs were not compatible. They could not really interoperate. So he was working in that manufacturing space specifically. But the idea was interoperability. And that means a lot of things, right, in the software world. But the other issue was that these software applications did modeling and simulation, right? So, for example, on a factory floor, right, you have robotic systems, right? You have assembly line, programs that monitor assembly line, again, supply chain interfacing with suppliers. So the idea was to build interoperability among all those applications and technologies and pieces of equipment within manufacturing originally. But it quickly became something that was represented or described as something specifically for modeling and simulation. And basically what happened is, I think, a lot of marketing folks took that and said, oh, well, our view of modeling and simulation are going to be these 3D fancy, real-time dynamic graphics representations of real-world objects. So you saw a lot, and you're still seeing this, a lot of pictures or little videos of, the wing of an airplane in some fluid dynamics simulation to show how, how it works in flight with air going over the airfoil, or you see simulations for sound of an engine and how it dissipates. Materials, heat, temperature simulations, everything like that related to physical objects, but focused on what was perceivable to the human being, meaning the human is looking at a graphics display and he sees these models representing the physical object. So that's kind of how it started. And that's still predominantly the message or the view that is being disseminated worldwide. I can say more, but I'm going to stop and see if you want to follow with a specific question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for sure. You can, this whole topic of how, it's like some people simplify too much really what this kind of technology can do. So uh, you can sort of go about what it is and what it's not for sure. Because, as you said, some marketing folks have really simplified too much what this kind of technology really is all about.
Right. I think, well, I think, let me just kind of expound on that a little bit. So what we're seeing very, right now today, when you see people talk about digital twins or what they're doing, these companies are doing some work that they're calling, development of digital twins. But really, that is just a rebranding of the modeling and simulation work that's been going on since the first computers. Um, and what I mean is this: if you think about any program, any computer program that a human being uses to build something. It involves modeling, right? Whether it's software that architects use to design buildings, or structural or civil engineers use to do engineering analysis, stress, strain, failure, earthquake modeling, etc. Those all involve the creation of a model of something real, that, something that we all understand, right? A building, a foundation, a geological analysis of soil to see, how you have to build a foundation to stabilize a building, right? Like I said, aircraft, spacecraft, um, you know, just, function of a human heart or anything, right? Those are all models. But I think what's happening is now everybody's just rebranded their work in that space as, oh, we're building a digital twin, but nothing is different in the work they're doing. So part of the
Got it.
problem is the following, right? An important area is this. Um, uh, the difficulty, the real challenge is the interoperability, because um, it's difficult to create universal standards for the representation of anything, right? So think about one vendor makes a software application. He has some internal model and proprietary software, algorithms, calculations, etc., to model that object, or even to represent it, right? Think about a static representation of, a brick. Think of all the aspects, right? It's got a dimension, color, weight, material composition, etc. So how do you coordinate that globally to make everybody use the same definitions? It's very difficult. So even within the same industry, it doesn't exist, right? So if you have, let's say, different companies making modeling and simulation software for, let's say, designing aircraft, their implementations, their definitions are proprietary. So one of the things I've been really proselytizing is that if we're going to advance and make any industry, even one industry, let alone cross-industry applications, interoperable, we have to think about standards uh, across many aspects of the software industry, right? Actual static definitions of things, uh, the way or algorithms that are used to do the calculations or the simulations. But it's more than that. It's even involving things like the the semantic comprehension, right? If you say, here, I have a definition of a screw. Okay, well, what does it take for a computer program to semantically comprehend the the aspects that comprise the definition of that screw? Um, it's a difficult problem in computer science. Moreover, you have to have a willingness of the industry to create those standards. And we don't really have that today. But if we could make effort and inroads toward achieving that, or moving closer to it, then every industry could benefit. Um, because let's say you have a screw, right? Well, a screw is used in many different industries, right? Aerospace, automobiles, or you know, uh, securing your doorknob to your door. So um, I think it's a worthwhile effort, but we have a long way to go.
Yeah, for sure. And when you said at the beginning that people just taking simulation modeling software and rebranding it as digital twins, that's very. I mean, it could be two things. They could be doing it from a place of ignorance, or they could be doing it from a place of dishonesty. But either way, really, what do you say? Maybe in two sentences, or I mean, or three, really. What or more? What do you say to people is the real big difference between what people are rebranding as something that is not, and actual digital twins?
I'm sorry. So the question is, what is the difference between what people are rebranding as digital twins and what digital twins uh, should be, what the vision is for digital twins? Is that the question? I just want to make sure I understand it.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So I think one could say that there is not really a difference. For example, um, companies who are doing, what they say they're building digital twins and writing software applications using digital twins. Technically, that's accurate if they're, let's say, building systems that do modeling and simulation. Let's say take an aerospace company. Okay, uh, that's a true statement. Um, I would say the vision, um, the original vision, but also what I'm now proselytizing as the the direction and maybe even the primary goal of digital twins is to continue to build, to use it as something to support modeling and simulation, but to create true interoperability across vertical markets and technical domains and industry and academia. So that is the part that's missing. But again, that's just my vision. I mean, there's no real standard definition of the world in the world that says what this thing should be, or by definition, what it has been
yeah.
agreed upon to become.
And what sort of, how could you talked about this in your article, how could an industry like, let's say, healthcare sort of benefit from implementing this kind of technology?
Oh, that's actually a great question, Adrian. I'll tell you why. Going back to what I said previously, right? Most of the marketing around digital twins has centered on showing these fancy 3D graphics, uh, you know, both static and real-time graphics that show modeling a physical object, right? Like an airplane wing in flight and how it bends and etc. Right? Um, but the medical industry is a great example of the other, possibly the more important aspect of what digital twins could be, which is the underlying definitions, right? The descriptions of data, the semantics around those descriptions that give it clear comprehension of what this thing is that you're describing. Okay. So for example, I'm going to call it the healthcare industry, we have medical records, right? We have technical information about, let's say, laboratory test results, um, descriptions of, patients' conditions, right? Whether it's disease or just describing this person as healthy. The medical records management is more the management of a lot of things beyond that, administrative, right? Here, a person came in, to see the doctor, right? That's not related to the health aspects of what was discussed in the visit, right? So there are different areas that comprise, let's say, healthcare industry, right? Insurance, um, etc. Right? There's at least, for example, in the United States, we don't have a national health care industry. We have many different individual insurance companies, right? So each of them have to interface with other entities, right? The government, patients, doctors' offices, okay, etc. Um, so the problem is these systems are not interoperable. Uh, in fact, today, there's a, still a astoundingly large amount of use of facsimile, right? A doctor's office will fax a report to, let's say, a specialist. Let's say doctor says, oh, you broke your foot. You need to go see the orthopedic specialist. I'm going to fax the report over to them. If you look at MRIs or CT scans, the software that records the images is proprietary. It's not standard. You can't take the data from one such system and just transport it and have it be comprehended by another system. So there are many, many aspects of the absence of interoperability in the healthcare field. And digital twins could be something that, again, that term represents this notion of building interoperability, not only in programs being able to exchange data, but to comprehend semantically what that data is, how it should be interpreted. It's easy for a human being, but it's difficult for a machine, for a computer. So that's why I've been emphasizing in all my articles that for me, the only real goal, uh, the major category goal is interoperability. Because without that, we have nothing new. We're not doing anything new. Just like, I keep using the example of the aviation industry. There are all these applications built by these companies, and let's say Boeing uses one, Airbus uses another, and they all have their ecosystems, right? They invest in one vendor's software applications. They kind of want to continue doing that because those tools are proprietary. It's just like one company says, well, everybody in my company, we've standardized on the Microsoft desktop environment, so we're going to continue because we've already gone down this road of investment. Another company might say, oh, we're an engineering company, we use Unix systems. Okay. So digital twins has a potential to build the interoperability that would still allow people to choose the tool they want, continue to support the ecosystem they've built, but be able to enhance and broaden their chance to work with other companies, right? Other vendors, other suppliers, right? So all these issues like supply chain, manufacturing, real world issues that are important would be well served, as well as the very technical engineering work.
Wow. Um, like full transparency. So this might be a bit of a stupid question. I'm not really familiar with how the healthcare industry works. But I'm assuming that this sort of enhancement that you're talking about that they could get from implementing this kind of technology, it's I don't know. I'm guessing that it help. I don't know, maybe save lives. I'm not sure how that could work out.
Well, it's definitely not a stupid question. It's a great question. I'll tell you why. Uh, in the last several years, 10 years, there's been more work. You see more of these companies. It's not getting that much, it's not that popular in the so-called press media. But there are companies building systems to do home health monitoring, right? So, um, you have patients who are at home, but the doctors want to still monitor their condition, et cetera, so they don't have to be in the hospital. Um, so something like that, think about that ecosystem. It involves a tremendous amount of products, maybe products from different companies, and it involves a lot of entities, right? You have the patient, right? The patient needs some kind of connectivity to the internet. So the device that the patient has can, upload information to the doctor. The doctor is maybe in his office, but he also is affiliated with a hospital. You have insurance companies, you have ambulance, right? If the patient has a condition that becomes serious, maybe now you want some automated software application monitoring at home to call the ambulance and transport him to the hospital. Or maybe you need the doctor's approval for that. So there's all these moving parts. So again, the question is interoperability, right? How do you make such an ecosystem where there's this seamless communication and transmission of information um, to the different entities, right? So it's now this I'm going to touch upon a subject that we could maybe save for our next podcast, but um, you know, to the software professional, there is a difference between data, information, and knowledge. Those three terms imply different things, right? Data, you might see a database guy think of data as like, well, this is the data in my table in my SQL database. but information is more, you know, uh, maybe like semantically, what is this data? What does it really represent? How do I comprehend it? And knowledge could refer to things like expert systems and the ability, maybe now, we're just talking about AI, right? So that AI systems are thought of as having knowledge, not just looking at data, but all three are related, right? So there's a lot of aspects to building any such system like this. Um, so digital twins, I think, could be very important in that area. Um, and again, I think the focus must be interoperability. Um, but I will say this, right? Um, Part of what you said about, what is the reason for the state of affairs? Some companies um, build proprietary systems just because they want to force you to use all their products. But in other cases, it's very difficult to build something that uses very universally accepted standard definitions. It takes a lot of effort to do that. So it's not always, because of some clandestine, surreptitious or, evil goals. It's just a very difficult problem. Um, but that's why I say the effort needs to start in a concerted way to really try to address these challenges.
Wow. Wow. Do you have any upcoming, I don't know, investigations or articles that you'll be working on for about this topic?
Well, I do have uh, my two colleagues and I at the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. We have a kind of an updated version, an enhanced version of the informational report that we wrote on digital twins, especially its relation to security, right? That's digital twins will work and exist within the context of many other things. Security. It's not going to. It's not going. It certainly has to work with those things. It's not going to supersede anything like that. So I have that article that's going to be coming out. I'm also working on something. It's going to sound a little bit different. A paper on AI and kind of an analysis of where it could, where it could work. I was going to say where it could be offer some benefit, but also where it has very, very little hope of working. Um, and what I'm trying to do, what I always try to do is kind of take the rational approach and look at the practical side of things, right? There has to be some kind of reason and reasonable approach to deciding what we use where and when and for what purpose. So a lot of the writing I do is about that. And for example, the two IEEE computer articles that I sent you, that was really the focus, right? Where does it make sense to use something? And what should be the true intention behind the effort? What are the reasonable goals? What are the useful goals? So that's kind of going to be the motivation of this AI paper I'm working on. But I'm also, like I said, continuing to work with some other things like global air navigation and looking at how to enhance the interoperability of all the different systems, again, by addressing standards and interoperability. So it's it's keeping me busy, but I like it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really, I mean, I think I've said it like 2 times now, but yeah, I mean, that's really impressive, man. And for people that, may want to contact you and maybe work with you like in different projects related to technology, like what would be, like the best way to contact you?
People can find me on LinkedIn. I'm, got my profile there, and I respond to requests, of course. It's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And um, I've been working with in the last, oh gosh, let's see, we're oh, 2024 now. I'd say in the last 8 years, I've, been in 10 different countries working on different projects. So I'm, interested to hear from anybody who wants to do, uh, you know, various types of projects in different areas. I'm a big believer in trying to use technology to improve mankind. Um, so I'm happy to hear from like-minded people anytime.
Yeah, yeah, man, for sure. And and I like what you said about building technology that it can change the world because really, that's really what people like you do. I mean, you guys are changing the world. I mean, you may not see it now because really, like we never appreciate things in the moment, really. But when time passes and it's been like 5 or 10 years, you look back at what you did, then you realize how great everything, how great the work that you did was. So and future generations, they may not know who build the technology that they're using or that is protecting them. Uh, but I mean, it's people like you that build that kind of technology. So yeah, um, it's always great to conversate with people like you.
No, it's a pleasure, Adrian, and I know we've talked about other topics for our podcast, so we'll be discussing those, you and me, and we'll figure out what is the next topic you want to present. And I enjoy it. I do enjoy sharing ideas with people, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And for people listening, yeah, we do have more ideas for future episodes. So yeah, I hope that everybody that was listening to this got lots of value and that you learned um, really what digital twins really are and what they are not, and some of the applications that they can bring to the world. So yeah, thanks for listening and have a good day, Vartan.
Okay, Adrian, you too, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, all right,
Okay. All right. Take care, Adrian.
you too.